Well, thank you all for joining. I think today is going to be hopefully a really interesting session because it's all around what does a career in business development look like? And I've got, four brilliant speakers, all kind of followed very different career paths in business development. It's Camilla Honey, who is the managing director at jfdi. So give a wave. Zoe Mitchell, who's marketing and growth director at VaynerMedia. Brad Smith is director and founder of Succeed Digital Consulting, and Caroline Sparks, who's founder of Sparks Growth, also an independent consultant like Brad. I think let's do a quick intro from each of the speakers. So 1 minute each. Morning, you, Brad. I'll start with you.
I run Succeed.digital and Succeed.agency. Succeed.agency teaches agencies how to close more business, improve their win rate, build short-term, mid-term and long-term pipelines, and make agencies more truthful, better versions of themselves. Succeed.digital is a mini agency. We take on the web work that no other agency wants, typically because the budgets are lower, the projects are quite simple and straightforward, which means they're perfect for me and my team. I run Dunk Events, which is a lead gen events-based organization, and currently building out something called the Agency Collaborative, which is a network of 1,200 agencies.
No worries. Camilla, tell us a bit about yourself.
That's a hard act to follow, Brad. I've got to be really succinct, but I have been around for a hell of a long time, so I've got to pack this in. So I set up jfdi, which, if anyone doesn't know what it stands for, the mild version is just focus and do it, but obviously it can be stronger. Set it up 18 years ago, and prior to that, I had another 18 years in new business. I worked my way up, as you could do in the old days, from a new business manager to a director, ended up at J. Walter Thompson, working with the wonderful Martin Jones, who runs the AAR. I then became a new business consultant, listen to this, all these youngsters, 25 years ago. And I don't think there were consultants then, because everyone said, how can you be a consultant? How can you work for different companies? And I said, we just work for a range that aren't conflicting. And we were just beginning to move into the world we're moving into now with all the different types of agencies. So I then ended up working in Chime when I was troubleshooting, and at that point I got the idea for setting up jfdi, because at that time there was nowhere for people to go to learn about new business. There was absolutely nowhere, and if you were chucked into the role and you went, how does all this work? So at the time I had a little one, and I think I was pregnant, and so I decided to set up jfdi, and what I wanted to do was impart the knowledge and share the knowledge with everyone to give new business support, and I'm still very passionate about that, and that's why I'm here. I'm very pleased to be here to support Adam. So fast forwarding now, because my minute is probably very nearly up, there's a huge explosion in the last 5 years of supporting companies, which is fantastic because it shows there's a market for it. We've worked with about 1,000 agencies, and what we do is we help fill pipelines, convert business and grow business via training and consultancy, jfdi Inside, which is helping agencies win briefs, and Onside is our coaching program. But ultimately, I love helping people and I love helping businesses grow.
Caroline, do you want to jump in next?
So I've been in business development for just over 20 years, and I'm a serial agency new business person, sort of working my way up from new business manager up to new business director, and then chief growth officer, across a heap of agencies, probably about a dozen, something like that. I think I was, Camilla, I think I was probably one of your very earliest graduates, probably about 18 years ago when you first set it up, from your new business academy over at Cowley Manor. I think we did a residential.
Yeah, in those days.
Yeah, in the really early days, and it was fantastic, and that really set me up in terms of how to do new business, because as Camilla said, there wasn't really a community back then. There wasn't really any training courses or anything like that, so it was very much learning on the job and learning from mentors and peers. So yeah, I mean, that's what I've been doing. And then the last 12 months, pandemic wise, through one thing or another, I set up Sparks Growth, which effectively I'm kind of going in and troubleshooting and helping agencies with their sort of post-pandemic positioning and post-pandemic growth strategy. And that's what I've been up to.
Zoe, do you want to introduce yourself?
So I don't have as much experience as this lovely lot, but I'm about 10 years into a career in business development. But I did also kind of climb the ranks. But I guess the difference to highlight is I started as like a kind of pure salesperson. So my first job was software sales. And then I worked for the IPA, the Institute of Practitioners in Advertising, which was kind of like a dual role of helping them welcome in new members, but also helping their new business and marketing group do all of the things that the other guys have said. So provide training, kind of making the role have the respect that it deserves as a kind of function within any other agency. And then that's where I pretty much worked out that I had what I thought were all the kind of requisite skills to be a good business developer. So I hopped over the fence to actual agency land and worked again for a range of agencies. So within the M&C Saatchi group, I worked for a kind of CRM data customer engagement agency. I've worked for kind of integrated and experiential agencies. And then most recently was Widening Kennedy, where I was the new business director. And then I have been at VaynerMedia since September. So yeah, kind of onboarded remotely. And then depending on how much you know about VaynerMedia, it's a full service agency, so creative and media integrated under one roof, and led by a guy called Gary Vaynerchuk, who is kind of incredibly prolific online at the moment in terms of building brands in digital channels and social media. So yes, I am hugely passionate about sales and the kind of the sales function, but then I'm really, really passionate about brands and brand building. So I think those kind of two together mean why I've stuck around in kind of ad land so long. But yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me, Adam.
And Zoe, I'll just carry on with you, because we had a little chat last week and we talked about BD and what the role encompasses and how many hats BD people have to wear. So what type of sort of BD person are you, and how did you discover that?
Yeah, so I think everyone on this call is probably everyone's a different personality because everyone's an individual. But in terms of the skills that are needed for a good kind of new business person, you kind of have to be passionate about sales in some variety. But then, yeah, all the different hats you wear at any one time, you are giving kind of strategic feedback, you are giving creative feedback, you have to understand the tech and tools if you work for kind of a media company, etc. And for me, it comes down to like two things. It's what your business needs right now. So where is it in its kind of business development journey? Is it, does it need to even just kind of get its name out? Does it need to just be heard about? Does it need to shift perception because people think that it's one thing, but actually it's another? Or is it just about celebrating all the good stuff that it's doing and you get to be really, really picky? So I think once you've figured that out, and then once you've figured out the type of person that you are, which is, I am super passionate about sales, I'm a really good salesperson, or I am a really good kind of strategic thinker and I feel like I can weave a good kind of pitch narrative, or I feel like I can really get to something that's going to kind of ignite a good creative idea, or are you really good at the creative judgment and you can bounce ideas off, or are you a really good project manager that is going to just get everyone on the bus, get everyone what they need when they need it, and just keep it going towards pitch day? So there's all these kind of questions that you can ask yourself to go, how am I going to add the most value to my business right now? And am I what they need? And am I showing up in the way that they need me to? So Adam, to answer your question, what type of new business person am I? Yeah, I'm all of those things, because otherwise I wouldn't be a good business development person. But I'd say that I am probably I'm probably a salesperson, and I get a kick out of someone going, here's your commercial objective. How are you going to get there? What's the contact strategy? What do you need to say? And being a really good kind of consultative salesperson.
Loved loved all of Zoe's sentiments and totally agree with her, by the way. So there's a couple of things. When I go into a agency, the most common thing I hear is not what they think their problem is. They tell me, we just need leads. We just need more leads. And no matter what I can observe from the outside within 10 minutes or within maybe 3 months of working with them, they think it's always that. And the most important thing I find, and this is how I approach it, is to flip that mindset in that very first initial meeting. And the way I do that is I say to them, if you drive new business to your website, how much of it will you convert? So think about traditional digital marketing strategies where people invest loads of money in digital marketing, SEO, PPC, campaigns, and all the like. If people get a 1% conversion rate, which is typical of e-commerce and retail sites, up to about 3%, they think they're doing well. If you flip that on its head, what it means is that of every 1,000 people that hit your website, 997 people don't want to work with you. And that's how you've got to look at it when it comes to new business sales. Agencies that think they're really, really good at converting really, really well, actually, how many opportunities are they losing? What could they do differently to do more with what they've already got rather than spending more on getting more in the funnel? And I think that's where I found a lot of success and joy in actually saying to people, don't think you've got to go out and have more briefs, more pitches. Look at where your existing time is spent, what you're not doing as well as you think you are, where it could be improved. Take on board feedback. I mean, I love winning, but I love losing gracefully. And if you lose and you learn something from losing, that helps you win the next time around.
We have a joke at jfdi where we have a line from sort of left to right, and very far to the left is the sales sort of twitchy person, and very far to the right is the deep thinker. Ideally, you'd sit sort of in the middle, either slightly to the left or slightly to the right. So we have teams who are going to be better on marketing and thought leadership. And then we have more the prospecting types. We do find the prospecting types are really twitchy because they don't want to sit with us for 2 hours and talk about strategy. They just want to get on and do. But sometimes the strategists don't do the JFDI. So you sort of need to meet in the middle. But I think it's really interesting what both Zoe and Brad were saying, which is it's all about where a company is at what point. And I've got a flip chart, so I might have to hold myself back because I might stop using. You've probably all seen my upside down funnel.
Oh, great.
I'm obsessed with the upside down funnel, which is what Brad was saying. You start at the bottom. Shall I do my flip chart? So you've got a funnel. And what most agencies do is they put a few good things in at the top. They go, let's do Clubhouse, let's do a mailer, let's go out and network, let's hire a lead gen agency, etc. And they pray that £2 million will drop out here. Let's say 1 million. So what we do is we go, how much should you get from existing client growth? You should really get 50-50. So rather than, exactly as Brad said, people are always going, and the definition of madness is we've hired a lead gen agency and we've got absolutely diddly squat from it. Let's go and hire another one, which is madness. So we go, right, okay, so 0.5 should come from existing client growth. Have you taught your existing client team how to do it? They usually say, yes, it is something we can help with. So we go, fine, you don't need help there. So you've got to bring in 0.5 mil here, net new. And we've just done our barometer, and if anyone would like a copy of it, it's a survey amongst agencies so you can benchmark. So I'm really happy to send that on. Industry average, surprisingly, is about 46%, but for the sake of my maths, let's say 50%. So we need to be putting 1 million in here of the right kind of opportunities, because the right kind define us. Then there's a chemistry, credentials, meeting stage, and say that's 35%. We need to put 3 mil in here. So then we say, stop, before asking us to go up here, get your conversion rate higher here, get your conversion rate higher here, and then work out the average value, which will have different values attached. And then you can go up here and go, right, there are 12 prospecting strategies, there are tons of marketing strategies, and let's be disciplined about getting rid of some and working out which ones work best. And so we live in a weighted pipeline. So I have to put some decent trousers on, so I'll be doing that. So we live in a weighted pipeline, and the weighted pipeline tells you what lever to pull when. So if you've got lots you're about to convert, you might get very busy with client work. If your pipeline, the value is looking low, we need to put more in there, and then you need to do the consultative selling. So I think what Zoe said, absolutely, what lever needs pulling then shows what resource you need. But I think coming out of the pandemic, it will be very interesting to see what resource agencies need, because our barometer showed that agencies are increasingly recognising the importance of marketing, but particularly the medium agencies. So, we know it's all about a lot of spinning plates, basically. So different personalities for different needs.
Over the years, there's always been kind of trends and fluctuations in the kinds of things that are asked of business development. I remember many moons ago being sent on a cold calling course with loads of people from a sort of a call center, which was a bit weird. But yeah, I think over the last few years, there's definitely been a shift from lead generation, going out, pure hard sales, and letting the agency letting the agency pipeline be filled to that, to what I've seen certainly over the last 12 months, which is, the agencies which have survived the pandemic relatively unscathed are now trying to figure out how they can be more how they can be more relevant to clients, and how they can really stand out, and certainly the medium ones really stand out against their competition. So there's been a lot of focus, certainly during and kind of now, in terms of pandemic, in terms of looking at agency positioning, looking at agency marketing, making sure that what they're saying is relevant, useful, and has some immediacy about it, because everyone's wanting to and certainly clients are wanting to rebuild their companies. And I think in terms of business development, I think we always, as a community, have to remember that we've kind of got two jobs to do. One is obviously to build the agency, and to build the agency's sort of bottom line, and make sure that their growth is there, but also to make sure that what we're selling to the clients effectively is going to help them to rebuild their businesses post-pandemic, because they have been absolutely hammered. So I think the offer that agencies have now needs to be re-looked at and reshaped. And I think that the way that the agencies are selling to CMOs needs to be a lot more consultative than it ever was, because they are looking for agency partners. So I think it's changed over the years. I think certainly now there is more value in a sort of a strategic approach to business development. And I think that there used to be a time when clients didn't want business development people in the room, because they didn't really want to speak to them, because they knew that we were going to try and sell them something. And nowadays I think that's slightly flipped, because actually the business developers have become business strategists to a certain point. So I think there's a sort of another string to the bow there, and I think it's a really interesting shift within our discipline.
Yeah, the reason I was nodding is because for me, and this is a very personal experience, but in the last year I have felt a lot more like brands are happy to talk to me as the new business and business developer, because they know that I'm going to field their request in the right way. So the thing that I was nodding about is Caroline saying that we're much more business strategists now, is when it was kind of like we were the gatekeepers, like, Wyden and Kennedy, for example, the amount of inbound we used to get, and it was very much like, are you sure you're ready to work with us? Which is a really privileged position to be in, but you are gatekeepers and everyone thinks of you as such. So it's like, the brand has either got to convince you of why your brief is worth working on, or, as is the case for another kind of inbound, it's you really hard selling, like, we are the right agency to talk to, and we can solve all your problems, and we've got everyone you need. Whereas now, I don't know if it's just because of COVID, but they seem to trust the business developer to go, am I really understanding you correctly? Is this what you really, really need? And can I just repeat that back to you? And have I understood that this is the scope? And have I understood? Well, in that case, and we all seem to be talking about consultative selling. I don't know, it's just a thing that's emerging, but it's that moment that now BD is seeing as a respectful discipline, because you go, right, they are the ones that have really understood my objective, really understood all my kind of nuances and my motivations and my evaluation criteria, and they are going to field my request to the right person. That's on the brand side. But Adam, your question is slightly about whether agencies are not still respect it as a function. I guess, I guess again, I'm answering it from a kind of personal perspective. I am somewhere where new business and business development and growth is respected as its own kind of discipline and craft and skill set. Whereas, in some cases that might be the truth.
For those of us who are working with lots of agencies, it's different. And for those of you who are all in agencies, I mean, I think you either inherit a management team who totally get new business, so you're there to bolster a resource and bring new ideas, or you inherit a management team who don't know how to do it, but they know they need to learn, and they're receptive to learning. So you're there to educate and also activate. And I mean, you can never stop learning. I'm constantly listening to podcasts, reading books. you know, so anyone who thinks they know it all is just would be crazy. And so the management team who don't get it and don't want to get it, I would just say avoid at all costs, which is okay for us consultants. But if you're in an agency and, you know, I do talk to people and I do feel really sorry for them where the management team don't believe in marketing. And, you know, anyone who says go over there on your own in a little box and pull briefs out of a magic hat are just not in the world. And, you know, I'm sort of a bit fearful of those kind of people and companies, really. And I think, to echo as well what Caroline and Zoe were saying, I 100% agree. I think it's now taking more brain power than tenacity. I think it used to be, I know my business partner and I chat about it because I'm the sort of get on with it and he's the sort of strategist, and he would always say it's not about the numbers. And I sort of thought, well, I think it is about value and volume. And the danger is that they're different types of sales. So transactional selling is if I was to try and sell this pen now in the next hour, I'm going to act very, very differently because I'll never see you again and I need to get my commission. And the danger is if people see transactional, that's why they think sales is a dirty word. And we are not in the business of transactional selling at all in our sector. We are in the business of consultative 100%. But actually, there's a brilliant book, if anyone hasn't read it, called The Challenger Sale. It's quite heavy duty, but it's absolutely brilliant. And it shows you the different types of salespeople. And in there's like the hard worker, the lone wolf, the relationship builder, the challenger sale, and I think there's one other. But I definitely came under the hard worker and the relationship seller, because going back to the 90s when I was at J. Walter Thompson, it was much more about having fantastic relationships. There was one intermediary, you were all over it. You went out for lunch, you got on with people. On the whole, that's how you did sales. And the world has changed in the same way that my children can be, you know, discerning about where they go by looking on TripAdvisor, by not looking at ads. You know, it's a buyer's market. And I think that's what's happened. There are 25,000 marketing communication agencies. It's absolutely a buyer's market. So we have to help the buyer to buy. And the way to help the buyer to buy is by value add, being memorable, being compelling, being consistent, by adding value. And by adding value, that's where you need to bring in the brain power. So you need the brain power and the tenacity now. But it's good if we all feel that it's being more respected, because that's one of the reasons I set up JFDI a long time ago. And I think there is so much, Brad was saying, there's so much to learn, you know, so all the tech platforms, and, you know, you really need to keep up on it. And to write a really good marketing and new biz strategy, you know, you really need to be up on your game and keeping up month on month, because it's all changing.
Or in terms of outbound prospecting, so when you're finding these clients, you've not yet had a conversation with them, would you go in and trying to add value to generate that conversation? Or you know, because you know that's the hardest thing from my point of view, actually getting a conversation started with someone.
Over the years, I've seen several things done for this, and certainly over the pandemic I've seen lots of agencies doing things like surgeries with their management team. So we'll give you half an hour's chat with our chief strategy officer and things like that. I think it all depends on the prospect. So if you can figure out what their motivations are, you know, do they need to look smart in front of their boss? And if they need to look smart in front of their boss, give them something that, you know, that they can then sort of show or drop into conversation. And it might only be a nugget. It might not, you know, it might not be like a whole heap of research or anything like that. If it's, you know, if it's a CMO who, you know, is having problems, so there's been a profit warning, or there's been, you know, some kind of takeover, or something's tanking, then, you know, offer half an hour with your chief strategy officer, and, you know, just to shoot the breeze, no strings attached. You know, there's different ways of offering value that don't necessarily have to be a half-day workshop, or, you know, or we'll do a social media audit for you, or on all of those things, which actually kind of take up a lot of time. There's some things that can be really quick, but it all depends on the prospect themselves and what's valuable to them.
I totally agree that the value-based approach is being tackled from the wrong angle. So agencies that I've observed and worked with, and others that I haven't worked with, will often talk about the value they provide. And what they do is they assume value. They assume because they have something that they think is valuable, everyone else will think it's valuable too. And the problem is that half the time it isn't. So the simplest thing to do, and I've had great success with outbound and outreach on my own business and for agencies, is ask the question. And I'll give a really simple example. If I'm generating interest in an event, I will never, ever send out a traditional email with here's all this lovely event information, here's why you should attend, look how amazing it looks. I'll say, I'm running an event, this is the title. Would it be valuable to you to have some more information? 2-line email. I get way more respect and way more engagement off the back of sending a 2-line email asking, would it be of value? And they go, no, not really, but thanks for asking. Or actually, yeah, can you send me more detail? What's the second one? No problem. If I haven't got their email address, what's your email address? I'll ping it through now. In the last 6 weeks, 254 email addresses from cold using that approach. It's just about offering and asking how you can help others, not assuming anything. Hope that helps a little bit.
Yeah, massively. Thank you.
I think we always start with, and I know everyone would start with as a consultant, whether we call it immersion days or kickoff days or academies, we always do our new business strategy day. And it has to go, what is the future looking like? What would success look like personally and professionally? It used to be 5-year plans, then I downgraded to 3. Now it's probably 12 months. But what do we know? What do we want to achieve? What is it we need? It might be that you want to get a new, a piece of digital work to demonstrate your digital credits. It's not always monetary, but we need to go. Where are we trying to get to? Is our proposition strong and fit for purpose? And okay, so there's a difference between a business proposition and a new business proposition. So we try not to get involved, even though we'd like to, in business propositions, because that's not really for us to do. And you hope that company is fit for purpose, but you do have to have a go-to-market new business messaging strategy and collateral that works, and working out what your ideal client is. But not just sectors, but personas is vital. So you have to do that front piece. Then you have to go back and do an audit and go, what has worked, what hasn't worked, what have we learned? And from there, we can then do the what prospecting strategies, what marketing strategies, and how we're going to resource it. So to me, the way to manage, that's the only way. I mean, it's been a long time since I've actually been in one company as the new business director, although I obviously do the same thing for JFDI. But I think if you have one day and you can encourage the team to come together and do this, it is literally like having 40 meetings in a day, from the reception area looks crap, although we're not worried about that at the moment, to, have you got a pitch process strong, to what are we doing on our event next week? So you just can cover all these areas and you get alignment and agreement from everyone and buy-in. And then we create it into a committed action document that we call the Bible. And it's like, right, stamp and sealed, we've all agreed. And why I called the business JFDI is I think it's all really strategic and really smart, but it has to boil down into who is going to do what by when. And to me, it's no different than saying I'm randomly going to run the marathon, next October, whenever. It's just too overwhelming and too big. You've got to work backwards and break it into, that means I'll do this, and the consistent behavior to get there. So I think in terms of managing up, you have to ask or need a day. In this environment, you might want to cut it into 2.5 days or 3. We've been doing them in 3 times 2 hours because an hour might be too long, but you think you have to get commitment from everyone. So that's what I just think you have to do that, and then work to your plan. And then probably, for those of us who do new business, we might all be goal orientated. So whether people like numbers, and I love like 90-day plans, 100-day plans, and then you look, review, and then you go into the next 100 days and the next 100 days. So that's how I try and manage the team.
If you're coming in as a junior, or someone who even maybe isn't junior, but maybe feels that you've got a team around you that maybe don't have a listening ear, it's a really simple way of doing it is to split it into 3 categories and you turn them into questions. So the 3 categories are do nothing, do something, or do everything. And so you ask the agency, as a person in the role, I just want to know what happens if we change nothing. Are you happy with the status quo? Are you certain if we just do nothing and carry on, we'll hit your targets, your aspirations, your growth plans, or whatever it is that they're driving towards? If we do something, what impact do you think that will have? And what do you think that something should be? Do you need someone else to tell you what that something should be? Or do you want me to inherit your something and get behind it? What about if we do everything? Have you ever considered doing everything? What does everything look like? Well, that requires a strategy. Are you ready and grown up enough and big enough as an agency to sit down and go, we've done everything badly, now we need to do everything right? That requires time, preparation, and a review. So splitting into those 3 sections helps an agency to self-identify how aspirational or growth focused they are. Some are just happy going along, servicing their existing clients, winning maybe one new deal in a year, and they're fine with that. And that's great if it works for them, and then you're going to be hard pushed to change that. Some want to go a little bit further, and some want to go all out, and you've just got to really understand which type of agency you're working in and where their aspirations are.
But also, surely if an agency is tasking you to bring in £1 million, there's got to be an investment to get that million. That's what I can never understand. If you say it's £100,000, some agency will say that's a lot of money, but if you are talking to a client, sales and marketing, and they want to bring in X, there must be something like 10% must be contributed to get the return.
I've worked in lots of different types of agencies, and some have been committed and been very sort of very new business and growth orientated, and those are the ones that will commit not only a decent budget, but also give and I've worked my way up right up through the ranks, but kind of give the business developers, whatever seniority they are, the chance to input and everything else. And what I'd say is, as if you're a junior and you're coming up, or you're kind of midweight and you're coming up, then just grab as much as you can, and grab the things that really kind of make you feel that really make you kind of shine. And that's the thing to do. I think if you are in an agency and they're tasking you with $1 million, and they're not giving you any, they're not giving you any backup, they're not giving you any resource, they're not giving you any budgets, to be honest, I would jump. I mean, and I have been in those, situations, and I've jumped really quickly because it's that kind of crazy thing that Camilla said in her upside down funnel. You're just repeating the same thing all the time, and just because there's a new person in the seat in the agency doesn't mean that the things are going to change, because they're just asking you to do the same things as the previous person. So I wouldn't underestimate business development as a career, and I wouldn't underestimate your saleability as a business developer. But if you find yourself in the wrong environment, without the support that you need, and without the opportunity for upward movement, then just go. Sorry to be blunt about it.
I think Caroline is spot on. There's one extra little bit in there. Remember what your job title is. Yeah. You're a new business director, or a new business advisor, or whatever title you have. What you're not is a magician. So if, when you're going into a role, you're being asked to perform what is effectively magic, I have to totally agree with Caroline. Walk away from it. I made one duff decision in the last 2.5 years with regards to an agency I took on. And I'm telling you what, 4 months in, I knew at the beginning. I mean, I'm a guy that trusts my gut feel. My goodness, I should have trusted my gut feel on that one. I made a duff mistake, worked with an agency for 4 months, knew 4 months in, they literally needed a magician. There was no strategy. They didn't want to change their proposition. They had nothing unique about them. They didn't want to discuss potential points of differentiation. They didn't want to have a new marketing or new business strategy. They wanted to go, to Camilla's earlier point, there's a room, there's a box, get in it and go and find some leads. And to be honest, no matter how good you are, and whether you've been in it for 20 years or 2 years, to be a magician is a whole nother skill set. So there's probably a new opportunity for magicians out there, but that's not what I do. I mean, if there's one thing I've learned in new business, don't go with what you're given, because that's what everyone else is going to do. So if someone sends you a brief and they tell you this is what you want, the challenger sale, if you've ever read the book, it's great. If you haven't, challenger sale doesn't take the brief and go, thanks, that's what you want, I'm going to give it to you because we're amazing. Challenger salesperson says, why do you want this? Why do you think this is right for you? How certain are you that this is the right step forward? What happens if you don't do it this way and we approach it from a different angle? So if you can take that approach in your very first meetings, you will absolutely make more of a memorable name for yourself during the business development process. And whilst at times you might be viewed as slightly awkward or slightly challenging in nature, they'll never forget how you made them feel and how you challenged them. And if they're the right type of client to work with, they'll respect your view and your opinion and actually want to be challenged.
I worked with a brilliant managing director called Stephen Carter when I was at JWT, and I was 25 and he was only 28, and he ended up in the Labour Party, and he became Lord Carter of Barnes, and he was absolutely brilliant. He really was a genius. But he said he taught us always to repeat, never assume or presume anything, which I thought was brilliant, i.e. double check. You know, you do have to double check everything works. The second one was speak up and trust your instincts. And that really, really helped me, because I was unbelievably pretty scared of public speaking at one point. And I remember the way he did it, we were pitching for the post office, and he went, right, I want everyone to put their ideas in, whether they're good or bad. So he started off with a terrible one deliberately by saying, maybe I should hide in a post box and jump out when the client arrives, which of course was absolutely ridiculous. But after that, as a youngster, I felt more confident to speak up, and then people build on each other's ideas, and you should never, ever, ever be squashed for any ideas you have, because, you know, in innovations, that's how you work. You always respect ideas. And the third one is definitely, it's better to do 80% today than 100% tomorrow. Procrastination is the enemy, and perfection is the enemy of doing. And I think for good new biz people are strategists, creatives, and doers, which is a very unusual combination to find. And I think if you have a creative head and you're strategic, but you're also who loves to get stuff done, then you're going to be brilliant in new business. And definitely there is more demand for new business people, I think, than good new biz people. So I think it's a fantastic career to pursue.
I completely agree with Camilla in terms of it is a fantastic career, and you can make a career out of it, you know, and I know people jump in and out, but I would say stick with it. It's so rewarding. But in terms of advice to my younger self, learn when to say no and learn when to pull out, basically. So and whether that be in an agency that doesn't fit you, or whether you're, you know, kind of midway through a pitch process and you just know you're going to tank, you know, kind of exit gracefully, I would say, on both accounts. So, you know, don't ever be afraid of saying no and kind of exiting stage left.
Learn from your wins, not just your losses. It's very tempting as a new business salesperson to ring up and say, when you've lost something, oh, what could we have done better? And, you know, some take that on board, some don't. Actually understand why you win, because if you understand why you win, you learn how to replicate those behaviors as well. So learn to do that, definitely, if that's not already in your sort of current setup. A term I love using, and I've used it for a couple of years since I've been running Succeed, is be emotionally engaged without being emotionally involved. And what I mean by that is be emotionally engaged in the pitches that you're running, but don't be so close to them that you can't actually step to one side and ask yourself, is this the advice that I would be giving me if this was my money and I had to pay for this? If you wouldn't buy from you, don't try selling it to someone else. And the third thing I'd say, and this is very direct, if you're working for an agency at the moment and when you're selling, you know, you get that slight feeling in the back of your head or your heart of, I've kind of just gilded the lily a bit there, or that's slightly uncomfortable. I hope they don't test me too much on it, because actually it's not quite right. It's a little bit of a white lie. Stop doing it today. Write down those things that you have to gild the lily on. Write down those things that you make up, because they are all the problems and all the reasons why people don't choose from you and don't buy from you, because they work it out. Even if you don't work out, they've worked it out.
If it was speaking to my younger self, it would be all of the points combined. It would be trust your intuition, know your own value, learn when to say no, and you just have faith in your own kind of, judgment, and communicate your boundaries. So just to close the loop on the conversation we were having earlier about managing up, if you're able to communicate your boundaries, I should not be responsible for this. This is actually on you. Then I think there are things that I would say to my younger self.
Well, look, thanks Caroline, thanks Brad, thank you Camilla and Zoe. All really good insights. Loved it.